Typically what I see is something like this. Got it? What's wrong with this? It's too blame small. It's a graph, you know, perfectly good graph of f of x and my projection lines and stuff. Okay? But I can't see it, neither can you. I know I constructed it because I have good micro. Oh, no, never mind. No, I don't. I don't think I'd have made a good surgeon. Never tested that skill. Okay. Yeah, sometimes I can cut my meat into pieces so I don't have to just put the whole thing in my mouth and chunk it, you know. I do have that much skill. Although I really kind of prefer the crude way of eating it, you know, I find that I probably don't want to do that in restaurants, even though sometimes I can't help myself. Okay, well, I don't know where these things come from. Okay, look, you got a graph, okay? And you want to find f of 1.7, right? So what are you going to do to find f of 1.7? All of a sudden now I've got a taste for a big roast. I can't get that out of my head. I don't know what this graph is going to look like when I end up drawing it. Okay, what do we mean by f of 1.7? We mean you put 1.7 on this axis, right? And then you do the line where x equals 1.7. You find out where that intersects your graph and over here and see what your y is, right? And you document that. You don't just write a mark here and a mark here in the projection lines, although if I see them, I know you're kind of doing the right thing, but I'm not sure what projection line corresponds to what. I don't see all of them, okay? So I don't necessarily know how to interpret what you did, and even though I'm fairly confident you know what you did, you haven't shown me enough for me to give you full credit, okay? Especially when you haven't really written down your solution in a coherent way, okay? So we want to be sure that you do that. So, you know, when we do the graph first place, make sure 1.7 is like here instead of like maybe here, right? Where you can't see anything, okay? So make sure your graph is big enough that you can label it. And then, you know, if your graph is like x cubed, might look something like this, right? And you've got 1.7, so f of 1. So now here's your f of x. So now 1.7 is here, and you project over to here, right? Okay? And maybe you think that's about 5, okay? Well, you can put the 5 here, and it's pretty clear that I know that, but you still haven't completely documented it. Okay? So this is your x equals 1.7 represented by this point, right? This is then f of 1.7 equals 5, and all of a sudden it's documented in a way that I see clearly that you know what this all means, right? Okay? Or you could draw the projection lines. You can say that's 5, and then down here you could say, okay, so f of 1.7 equals 5. And write that out, and having seen it in the graph even without the labeling of f of x equals up here, I see exactly what you did, right? And bingo, you got credit for that. And then the other one, where I do see too many mistakes, we want f of x to equal 1.3, right? Now where are you going to label, where are you going to put the 1.3? Well, that's an f of x. This is a graph of y equals f of x, right? That's a y value. And I see a lot of ambiguous things where the 1.3 is here and you do the same thing you did here, I think. Although you didn't really commit yourself by labeling anything and hope that I would like what I saw. Well, it's not that I dislike what I saw, but, you know, I'd be happier if I saw something totally documented that establishes without a doubt that you knew what you were doing, at least at that moment in your life. Okay? Because if you did, then you'd be able to do it again. Okay? So you're going to put 1.3 here. And maybe you label that as f of x equals 1.3 to completely make sense of it. Just like when you're doing a fundamental triangle, you want to say run equals and rise equals, so you keep track of what everything means, right? Okay? And many of you are leaving that off your graphs, and sometimes it's getting you in trouble. Usually not, but sometimes. Okay, anyhow, you get this, right? So what do? You project over here and here, and what's this? Well, if this is 1.7, that looks like it may be 1.1, maybe a question mark there because it's an estimate, right? And then you say this is a solution. Right? And, or you could write down here the solution of f of x equals 1.3 is 1.1. Okay? And it's just dumb luck. That's actually very close to the solution of that equation, but I didn't. It's 1.3. 1.1 cubed is 1.331, as everybody knows, so I just lucked out on that one. It's because I drew such a good graph. That's it. Okay? So, any question about what all this means and how you need to document this? Because I'm not seeing very good documentation on this one. I'm seeing something that could easily, with one additional step, become good documentation. This is what's required. Okay? Something of this nature.